What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 27, our Mackenzie Gaines episode. I'm your host here on the North End Podcast, Zach Graham, alongside my good buddy, on record as my best friend. It's Ian Me Show, a.k.a. E, a.k.a. Lee James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew Easy, a.k.a. Eastradamus, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. Chili Willy, a.k.a. Ian Stonkel. E, how you doing, man?
I am great. We inch ever closer to the start of our season. It is just a wonderful time to be an Austin FC fan, and I am thoroughly excited to talk more Austin FC with you, with our listeners, everyone who tunes in. Ready to get into it, my good friend.
I don't know if we should change one of those nicknames, the AKAs, right? Because you're not Twitter, man, right? At least, as far as anybody knows. But we did post your custom jersey that came in. We talked about last time that you got one of the alternate jerseys from our buddy Schnorb Jones as a very nice Christmas gift. But then you had that custom jersey came in with the Dior on the back and the new number 10. So maybe instead of Sebastian Drew Easy, maybe now you're Drew Easy Dior. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I like it. I'm still the Drew Easy Dior. What is the origin story with that?
I think that was the Top Flight guys, the We Are Austin TV guys. I think they started calling them that. And it stuck.
Because after I got the jersey, I was like, did I make a mistake here? Like, why are we calling him this again?
No, I think full credit to those guys. I don't remember if it was one of the four guys that, are on that pod, but I believe it's just straight from them.
Okay. Well, I love it. And for me, it just pushes us further into we need the Pop Smoke Dior remix.
Yes. Some rendition of that.
If we get that made, I will be truly ecstatic. But I'm excited. I didn't have a jersey last year.
Yeah, or the year before, ever. You're not a jersey guy if it's not LeBron.
I didn't even have a shirt the first year.
That's true.
I had to go and get that the Austin FC shirt there from the store. So I'm excited to wear my jersey. It'll say Dior on it, so maybe people will think I'm rich fashion icon. I am looking. I asked you because I'm assuming I'm going to have to field some questions about it.
Sure.
People will be like, "Who's that guy?" And it's like, well, come on.
I mean, at least for the any casuals, I guess the diehards will know. Yeah, I think any diehards, certainly, I would be surprised if there are a number of people that are listening to us. Mm-hmm. That don't already listen to Top Flight or Moon Tower for that matter, or Texas Ring of Fire, right? We're certainly bringing up the rear in terms of how long we've been doing this, right? We just started, I think just a little over 5 months ago was episode 1. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll see. But it's a good conversation starter. If we don't already have enough of those just with our antics in section 123. We've met a lot of people just off of that so far. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's your over under on potentially getting approached by people who may or may not know about the pod? Mm-hmm. I think we might have had one guy last year.
I think we've only had people reach out on Twitter saying we sit behind you, or we sit near you guys. We see you guys. I don't know if you see us doing how we take in these matches and really want to come up to us. I don't know. The people Damon, Woody, Dave, Brian, Mike, we know a lot of people in our section. Mm-hmm. And at least they like us. We haven't said enough outrageous shit yet where they're just oh, these guys suck. And maybe they're thinking that internally, but they smile and wave at least when we when we show up. That man, just even talking about our buddies there in the North End that we've already made, and we'll make more friends this year because year 2 over year 1, we met a lot more people, and you see the people showing up game after game, right? And you kind of figure out, okay, who's season ticket holders, who's not. Mm-hmm. That's just getting me so excited to be back in a month and a day, right? It's 32 days from today. Crazy. Yeah, and I'm hyped. And like, we have a lot to talk about, I think, on this episode. Or maybe not a lot to talk about, but if there's anybody in this Austin FC fan space that can make a lot out of basically nothing, it's us.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and dive in here. We did have our first preseason match on Saturday out there in Bradenton, Florida, the IMG Academy, where the team trained all week, and then culminated that week with the match against the defending Eastern Conference champions, the Philadelphia Union. And so the result didn't go our way, but again, it's preseason. Result doesn't matter much. I don't think we had really any great notable results last year. I think we lost to Chicago, maybe drew Toronto last year, and we'll get into the lineups and stuff that we and We Are Austin TV kind of put together from the little clips and images that were out there. But yeah, dropped the match 3-2. And Austin had the lead twice. Opening goal. I guess we can just go ahead and get into it. Let's first talk about the starting lineup. The starting lineup was Zardes up top, Driussi there in the middle, Redes on the right wing. So Rodney Redes, preseason god, like Lord Redes, like he's a titan when it comes to games that don't matter. And that actually continued on Saturday. Talk about that in a second. We knew Sofian Jeffel. I think it's Jeffel. Still working. Yeah, still working on some of the new guys. Jeffel was kind of in the defensive half there, or defensive mid. And then eventually we figured out, thanks to We Are Austin TV, that Johan Valencia was the other defensive mid there. And we had number 31 out on the left wing. Turned out to be Valentin Noel. Again, the 20th overall pick in the Super Draft from December. And then the back line of Kolmanic on the left, Keller and Cascante, the center back pairing, and Hector Jimenez on the right.
Nice.
Yeah, and then we had Matt Bersano, of course, the new goalkeeper signing. We'll be backing up Brad Stuver this year. He started the first half in net. And so first, again, like I said, Austin FC took the lead in the 27th minute or thereabouts, because all we had to go off of from this match was a live blog that was authored, updated, whatever you want to say, by the Philadelphia Union media team. While some of the Austin media members are with the team on this trip, there was no official lineup graphic or just any hints about who was playing at all. I think the first thing that helped us kind of decipher who's starting was they posted a picture of the pregame huddle, which only included like 10 or 11 players, and there was like 5 of them that had their warm-ups off and their mint kits on. And 4 of those 5 happened to be the back line, so that was easy enough to say, okay, well, there's your starting your 4 on defense there. But so we're going off the live blog, and it's Philly, right? You can't blame them that every update is Philadelphia centric. And so the only real Austin updates we got from that live blog were when we scored, and we scored first. So it was right around the 27th minute there. Actually came off a free kick based on that live blog, and then highlights that were later posted by the Austin FC media team. It was a free kick and then a second ball that actually Rodney Redes got on the end of. He crossed it into the box, and then Julio Cascante heads it home, which we've seen all of that before. First of all, second balls off free kicks and corners, set pieces, right? That was a thing that Coach said last year was one of our strengths that certainly we improved on from year 1 to year 2. Julio Cascante finishing a ball with his head. We've seen that plenty. And then, of course, Rodney Redes getting on the score sheet in a meaningless game. That is just about as guaranteed as anything right now around this team. So I guess your thoughts on Rodney. Let's talk Rodney here for a second.
Let's talk Rodney. I want to talk Rodney. I want to talk Valentin Noel. Those are the 2 points that I really want to get to. Rodney, I'm hoping that he can have some sort of impact on this season going forward. He's not in a position where we need him to perform in order to do well. So I hope that alleviates some potential pressure that he may have felt being our first overall selection. So I'm hoping that we can get something out of him that allows him to have a bit of a redemption arc here in this season. And in Rodney's defense, there was nobody we could have taken in that first year that would have changed the outcome of that year for us.
Sure.
Like
his individual failures were not a huge factor in the team not succeeding.
Correct. We just obviously we were an expansion team. We just didn't have the roster. Some of the negativity that he has endured, I don't know if it's coming from a place of, well, we expected this out of you from our first season. So I'm really hoping that we can see him in a position where we can get some minutes out of him in this extended season where it's not, we put him on the field and we just instantly get scored on. Which
right.
Also really isn't his fault. Like he's had some poor turnovers and things like that that have negatively impacted us. But, the trend of him hopping on the pitch and us giving up a goal is one that I don't forecast, going forward to be anything other than an outlier.
Sure. Just kind of an aberration through his first year. And I feel like the stat that came out and kind of like confirmed all of our prior thoughts about how bad we had been with Redes on the field. Like, I think that was like mid-season last year was like Austin's minus 17 or something with him on the pitch.
Just something absurd.
Yeah.
I do remember that. I don't remember exactly the number, but I think it was like 17 or 19.
Yeah.
It
was not good.
Yeah. It might have got up to like negative 22 there at one point. But look, man, his third year here, he obviously has talent. He obviously has skill. Like, we've seen from Reyna's, track record and history that he can evaluate talent pretty well. So we know it's there. Him doing well in these preseason games, honestly, probably adds to the frustration that most people have with him.
Probably, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's as we can see from these lineups, it's not like they're just throwing nobody out there. We didn't just our best player was on the field.
Right.
So I am very hopeful for Rodney this year, and I am walking into this season with him with a clean slate. Those first 2 years, we're past it. Yeah. We went to the Western Conference Finals last year. We obviously are trending in the right direction as a franchise, and I hope that he's a part of that.
Well, I tell you what, man, like the picture that I think the club posted, I think I saw it from the We Are Austin TV guys. He looks like he dropped some weight. He looks like he's in better shape, at least in this one photo. And we've seen him in a couple other, clips from training or still images. And I think with the depth that we've now constructed on this team at almost every position, it would be tough for him to come in and grab a key role at this point of his tenure with the team. But I don't think it's out of the question that he has like a Danny Hosen type season where like he's not a huge contributor to the overall success of the club. And maybe like I don't actually know the length of Redes' current contract. Maybe I'm hoping this is the last season, because whether or not like he does well and maybe we re-sign him or he doesn't and we can just be done with it. I guess my hope is that we see a season like we did from Hosen last season, this season for Redes, because he comes in maybe, 2-3 goals here or there, maybe 1 or 2 in a crunch time moment. We saw Danny Hosen's one of his goals was second in the goals bracket that we ran late last year. So I think I'm with you there. And ultimately, like we all make jokes and we're all frustrated because he was an expensive, not just an expensive signing, but our first signing ever. He's occupying one of the U22 spots. I understand the frustration and the jokes that we make, but it's not going to help his situation and therefore all of our fandom if he continues to do poorly. So I'm excited to cheer him on anytime he gets on the field, and I'm sure we will be inebriated enough that the first sign of him fucking up anywhere, we'll roll our eyes and, do all the same shit. But so Austin almost gets out of the first half with the 1-0 lead. Then right before half, free kick from well outside the box for Philly. Kai Wagner takes it, and Alejandro Bedoya ends up getting ahead to it. And it looked like not just Matt Bersano, but maybe some of the other Austin defenders on this set piece were caught a little bit out of position, because the Bedoya header was not really from, at least the angle we saw, was not really from what should have been a threatening area, but sneaks it over the top of a diving Bersano. So 1-1 at the half. Then we get into the second half, and similar to all of the preseason games we have seen in seasons 1 and 2, mostly a new 11 out there. I believe the only guy that stayed on the pitch was Valentin Noel, and moving from left wing to the 9 to play up top as the striker, which interestingly, I didn't know this, even though we talked maybe too much about the 4 draft picks that we had back in December. The majority of his minutes at Pitt were actually at the 9. So Valentin Noel clearly able to play up top as a striker, and he was the second goal. Came off a corner kick. I'm not sure. I think it may have been Ethan Finley that took that corner. It was tough to tell from the angle that was released of the goal. Again, it looked like it was just one of the media members' cell phone videos on the sideline. We also saw Diego Fagundes. It looked like off to the side on this corner kick with the trainers, looking to come back on, but was not on the pitch during the corner kick. So it looked like we scored a man down. Corner comes in, gets kind of pinged around, and ends up the ball's up in the air, like second, maybe third ball. And a number 32 kind of kicked, like almost like Nick Lima did last year for the second goal of the season to Alex Ring against Cincinnati, kind of like pings it over the top of the scrum. And kind of a rogue Philly defender near the goal kept Valentin Noel onside, and he slots it calmly home for the 2-1 lead. Philly then scored in the 67th and the 80th minute to win the match 3-2. But I know you want to talk about Valentin Noel. The rest of the 11 was Diego Fagundes in there on the left wing. It looked like David Rodriguez. Again, I don't know if I just said number 32 was David Rodriguez, but that's who it was. That took us a little bit longer to figure out. I think it was somebody in the LV Slack that pointed out that it was David Rodriguez. After I had gone and found another picture after the match that the team posted of kind of a pregame talk. And in between Alex Ring and Micah Burton, kind of our standout academy player, the name that most people would know, was this number 32. And I went to David Rodriguez, his transfer market page, and his photo just didn't look like he looked younger, a little bit of a different haircut. But then it was confirmed that it was, in fact, David Rodriguez there with the first team wearing number 32. Probably just 4 years older from his picture on the transfer market website. That was the guy who played for North Texas SC to start his career. And we were talking about, does that club still exist, et cetera. So he was 16 when he joined that club. You can imagine a 16-year-old to 20. He looks a little bit different now. So he appeared to be playing the 10 there. Ethan Finley was on the right wing. The defensive half was Danny Pereira and Alex Ring. So you got your presumed starters in there. And then the back line totally changed. You got Stuver in goal over Bersano, and then Gallagher on the left. Sal Mazzaferro, who I believe was the 76th overall pick, he was wearing number 35. He was in there at center back alongside Johan Romagna and Nick Lima on the right. So some of my takeaways before we talk a little bit more about Noel, some of my takeaways from both of the lineups, the fact that David Rodriguez got in there was interesting to me as an Austin FC 2 player. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the roster restrictions that the next pro team does have. Because David Rodriguez is on an Austin FC 2 contract, he will not be able to play with the first team this year. So it was interesting for me to see him out there here in a preseason game with the first team. Mazzaferro getting out there was also interesting. We know we have one senior roster spot, one supplemental roster spot remaining. I don't think he gets it, but I'm hoping that he is going to put on a good enough performance in camp and in these games that he will get one of those Austin FC 2 contracts and stay in the system. Yep. But the fact that, you had Stuver in there, but we give up 2 late goals to lose the match. I no hate, just I think probably an educated guess. I think Sal Mazzaferro, a 3rd round MLS pick, getting in there on the back line against Philly, even if they're not playing their first team, probably led to some miscommunications on the back line. And,
For sure.
I'm definitely not holding it against the team that they gave up 2 late goals with the 76th pick back there next to Romagna, who I think is probably our 4th out of 4 center backs on the first team right now. But any takeaways for you on that second half lineup, or just go ahead and start talking about our guy, Valentin Noel? I'm getting excited for this kid.
The takeaways you just had there were all that I would touch on. Obviously, the Romagna Mazzaferro pairing could lead to some choice opportunities for an opposing offense.
Sure.
But yes, I know we have talked about Valentin, especially when we previewed all those little rookies coming in, and what has been lost in the excitement for CJ and the excitement of the offseason and the players we've brought in is that we also went up and got this dude.
Yeah.
Like, we wanted him, we traded up, and we got him.
We paid extra.
He doesn't come with the the resume that CJ has.
Yeah. He's not a Generation Adidas guy. He's a little bit older.
Yep, not a Generation Adidas guy. Obviously, it looks like he's more ready to play now than CJ. Now, like I said, with him being able to move up to the 9, well, like you said, I apologize, where he moved up to the 9, that's really interesting.
Especially with us missing a certain striker right now.
I was going to say, it begets the question of where's the Moose?
Yeah.
But his versatility there to be able to do that is awesome. Obviously, if you're playing that 9, you have a knack for slotting balls home, a nose for the ball. I would assume that your striker would have a propensity for finding the ball and being able to put it in the back of the goal.
Right.
I'm really excited about him. And I think that he's somebody who might be a bit of a dark horse candidate to make a real impact this season.
Especially in some of the tournaments, right?
Yes. And back to the Redes point, I do think that is Rodney's opportunity to make an impact on the year.
Yeah.
We might not need you in a kind of must-win game that's pushing us towards the playoffs and seeding and whatnot. But in the middle of April, and we're seeing a long stretch of games here, whatever it may be, I think Rodney will have a chance, same with Valentin, to have an impact on this season, maybe in a smaller, contained kind of situation. And I'm very excited about the trajectory for Valentin. I think we have players that he's going to actually be very compatible with, given his play style, guys who he can learn from in that midfield as well. So I'm really excited about him. I think he will be coming up in topics of conversation going forward for not only this pod, but just Austin FC fans, the community. I think he's somebody that we can be really excited about. And, a guy who was a winner. And
Exactly.
Somebody who played winning soccer.
Yeah. So on the individual and team level, right? Like, he had some individual accolades. So yeah, I'm with you there. I'm correcting myself here. Sal Mazzaferro, 72nd overall pick. 56th overall was Jackson Valti, who was suited up, but did not appear to see the field. Again, without a live stream or some sort of, recap media availability from the coaching staff, we're just left here piecing things together. It is certainly possible that some of these guys that we don't think played did step onto the pitch for some period of the game. But we had no confirmation that Valti played. And alongside him, we weren't confirmed that there was appearances from Rigoni, Lundqvist, CJ Fodry, and Alfonso Ocampo Chavez, who we do know is in camp. So for me, I think it was most likely for all of those guys, whether it's the young guys who it's just, this match was not your opportunity, that you're going to get this preseason, and we'll see some rotation there through the next 3 preseason matches, or like Veterans Day off for a guy like Rigoni, right? Maybe Lundqvist just got here, 8 days prior to that match. Maybe he's not, we've seen Coach Wolff be hesitant to put new guys in before they really know what, they have the system down in his eyes. So I expect that we see all 5 of those guys at some point, and probably likely coming up here this Friday, where I imagine we will have to play the same game all over again and trying to figure out what's going on out there. So any other takeaways for you from this game? Yes, some things I will mention. Julio Cascante, we did find out from some still images, he was wearing the captain's armband in the first half. No idea who was wearing it in the second half. I imagine he passed that off to Alex Ring, but I don't think I didn't see at least any photo confirmation of that. And I guess the only other thing I would comment on is the fact that Micah Burton is there. I hope we see him get some time in one of these games. And I think it's a great thing that he is there with the first team and getting that opportunity.
Totally.
Anything else from you?
I'm really just trying to get my bearings on how a preseason before a full season looks in MLS. Right. Obviously, with football, most of these games you're just begging for your players not to get hurt.
Yeah, right.
Basketball seems a bit of more of an actual tune-up. Those guys get their solid first half. They try to win some games.
Ramp it up. Yeah.
So I'm getting my bearings here with these preseason games. It just sucks that we can't see anything.
Yeah.
And I just don't. Is there a reason to that?
I imagine it is that, and I had some back and forth on Twitter with some other Austin fans on Saturday afternoon after the match, just kind of talking about like, hey, not just from Austin, but the league as a whole. First of all, if the MLS is trying to compete with the 4 majors here in the United States, one of the things that they will have to do, and it's an investment, because it's going to cost money to broadcast these preseason games on whatever platform. But to make that a requirement, I think that is, it's a very small part of the multifaceted approach that the league would have to take if they're going to make a push and get kind of into that level where soccer is mentioned, maybe not on terms with American football or the NBA, but I think they can catch certainly baseball.
For sure.
And maybe even hockey in terms of interest around the country. Obviously, that's many years down the road, but I do think that broadcasting all the preseason games on some platform, and hint, they just got a big new platform there with Apple TV.
Yes.
I think that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Totally agree. I don't understand why there can't be some, even if it's just a bare bones, like, here's the game.
Right.
Like, you can watch the
no
game,
announcers. Yeah.
No commentators. Like, exactly. Something has to be available.
Yeah.
Because we're not the only people who are, digging through still images. And
well, we may be the only fools doing that. Well, people want to know who's playing, who scored the goals, and clips of that, right?
It's important.
We want to see these guys play.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I'm pretty flabbergasted at that. That the fact that we can't, even just get some sort of stream.
Right. I think there's on the individual team level. I think that some of these coaches and staffs they perceive an edge, right, in not having film out there on any new tactics, formations, players, what have you. But in my opinion, at the professional level, at least in this country, you don't get that. You don't get that luxury. That's NCAA, right? Where you do a scrimmage, and both teams agree we're not going to share this film, or we're going to just share it with our next opponent or whatever. It's not going up on whatever film exchange there is. Like you have that luxury in college sports, not in professional sports.
Yeah.
So I think both of us, right, kind of agree. Like these games need to be broadcast.
Have to be. And like you said, if we're talking about seeing this league in 10 years being mentioned with NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, look, man, people eat this shit up. If they're a fan, they eat it up. They want to see preseason games. They want to see practices. They want access to everything that they have access to. And I understand that, wanting to have some sort of coaching advantage, something where you're not revealing the stuff that you're going to be running during the season. But at the same time, these obviously are not the rosters or lineups that these teams will be playing.
Right.
So there's a lot that can go on there.
We have guys, David Rodriguez literally cannot play for the first team this year.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that changes for sure. That's my last takeaway here on the preseason in MLS. Hope it changes, but we will be, don't worry, folks. We will be wherever we got to look, we will find these players for you. And, we'll be on the blogs.
Yep. So team moved from Bradenton to Orlando this week, another week of training that will culminate in the second preseason game coming up on Friday. The opponent there, FC Cincinnati. So obviously we don't need to make any preseason predictions here, anything like that. But I will say there's probably some guys on that Cincinnati roster that want to get us back for the fucking ass whooping we gave them in the opener last year. And that was a playoff team. That is a proud team, at least now, coming off three straight wooden spoons in that opener last year. But anything maybe you think you want to see out of Friday? Or like, I guess for me, it's kind of what you mentioned earlier. No injuries.
No injuries was all I was going to say. No injuries. And let's get the kinks out. Let's work off the rust. Keep building some cohesion within the team, and no injuries. And if they want to get us back for us beating their ass in the regular season in a preseason game, then hey, man, more power to you. Go root for the bank.
So with the team moving to Orlando this week, they were reunited with an old friend. Felipe Martins got to spend some time, it looks like, with a bunch of the members of the team. You saw Maxi Arruti out there, Emiliano Rigoni, Driussi, Pereira, Diego, all hanging out by a fire there at the Omni Orlando Resort, where I assume the team is staying. So that was just a really cool picture to see, and great for those guys to be able to chop it up before the season, before things get serious and Felipe's, motherfucking us on the field if we meet up with Orlando.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be terrible to see.
Yeah.
We're going to hate the guy.
Yeah, Orlando, because of his presence, is maybe one of the teams I don't want to see in like an Open Cup or a Leagues Cup knockout round, what have you. So that was cool to see. Another cool piece of news, reportedly Leo Väisänenen, our big center back signing, is supposed to be arriving in the States, in Austin, on Friday. So a couple people wondering in the Slack and on Twitter, why wouldn't he go join the team on Friday? Well, they're coming back from Florida after the match on Friday, so I think they'll reunite. They should get his first training in there on Monday. So very excited to see him, arrive in Austin, be in training, and be in some of the content, right? So we can maybe pick up some crumbs about Leo, our new number 15 there on the back line.
Ooh, very nice.
Last piece of real, like Austin FC, at least first team news. Owen Wolff was called up to the U20 U.S. men's national team camp. It's one of the camps here before the U20 World Cup happens in May. So that's awesome, right, for Owen. Like, we want him to go and compete in these things and like represent the United States at these type of events. Like, that's great for no matter who is coming out of the Austin FC system to do so. But he's missing a lot of training camp.
Yep.
And if he does get selected for that U20 squad, which I don't think is out of the question,
nope.
That would be from May 20th to June 11th in Indonesia. So he would miss, 3.5 weeks of the regular season or Open Cup matches or anything like that. Another cool thing about the camp that he's in right now with the team, one of the other members, Tyler Wolff also on the roster. So the brothers Wolff out there with the U20 team. So that's cool to see. And I did see, again, we like to harp on the fact that MLS in particular they don't come with the accuracy, whether it's stats or news reporting or explaining your salary cap and your rules and regulations. They don't measure up to some of those other bigger leagues in other sports here in the United States. And they did make a mistake on their roster. I don't think I saw anybody point it out, but I noticed it, that they said Tyler Wolff was from Austin, Texas. That sent me down the Wolff rabbit hole saying, like, wait, was he born in Austin? Why was Josh Wolff and his wife in Austin 19, 20 years ago? Like, he's from Georgia, just like Owen is. So that was just a little misprint there. Although we wouldn't mind having Tyler Wolff here in Austin going forward.
Not at all.
But he is back from his loan, which I think was to Bundesliga 2, like the second division there in Germany. He's back, so he will be playing, by all accounts at this point. Tyler Wolff back with Atlanta this season. Okay. So I guess that's kind of all the first team stuff outside of the League's Cup draw, which happened. I was actually wondering, I think maybe the day before that happened, like, when are we going to get those matchups? And, think and you shall receive, I guess. Austin, in one of, I guess we can do a little, like, a quick recap of how this works. It's the first year, obviously, of this format of the League's Cup. Both Liga MX and MLS will pause their seasons for a month, starting in kind of mid to late July, going until mid-August. The top 2 teams from each league last season got a bye into the round of 32. Then there are 15 groups of 3, where the top 2 of those groups of 3 will move on to the round of 32, the knockout stage. So LAFC and Pachuca with byes. Every other team in those 2 leagues drawn into these groups. And what was surprising when this draw happened was Austin FC paired with 2 Liga MX, and I keep going back and forth between Liga MX and Liga MX is what I'm supposed to say there, I believe. There are 2 groups, just because of the unbalanced number of teams in each league. There are 2 groups with 2 Mexican sides in them. One South 1 with Austin, Mazatlan, and FC Juarez. And then the second one, I believe, is East 1 with the Philadelphia Union. This one always trips me up. I think it's Querétaro. Somebody's got to correct my fucking, not just my accent, but just like the pronunciation in general. Also Tijuana in that group there. So I think it's really cool that we get to see 2 Liga MX sides come through Q2, because obviously as the high seed there, we get to host both matches. And I just think, like, really win or lose those group stage matches, like, I would rather see those teams and their fan bases coming through Austin rather than getting another matchup with fucking Houston or Sporting KC or whatever. Like, we see those teams enough. This is going to be, I think, a lot more fun from a competitive standpoint and from a fan standpoint. And I don't know if you could see, if maybe you do a quick Google on FC Juarez's logo.
Okay.
Like a demon Mustang or something. Like, I think you'll like. I don't know if you like the colors, but I like the logo there for FC Juarez.
It's very very Christmas themed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great. I like it.
Obviously, both of those teams coming from the lower half last season from Liga MX. I believe they're on like match week 3 or 4 in their current season. So looking at their standing right now is not really reflective of how they were last season or necessarily how they will be this season, but very excited for those 2 games. And again, as season ticket holders, everybody gets tickets to those 2 matches. So certainly looking forward to those. And I don't know if you've looked through these groups enough to have a take here, but I certainly think there is at least one group that you could call like, a group of death.
Your death group.
Yeah. And I think the first place I'm looking is some of those teams in MLS last year that we know for one reason or another had, a tough year. I look to kind of those West teams, Portland, Seattle Sounders, and I think West 2 for me is a group that I wouldn't want no part of. You have Monterrey, you have the Sounders, and then RSL. So we are certainly not scared of RSL, especially if they're playing away from home. But that seems like a really tough group, especially compared to ours. I think Austin, I don't think we're super beat up if we don't make a run in that tournament, but I think the team should expect, especially with we're pausing for a month.
Yeah.
There's no other games we got to worry about. And I think not getting in the top 2 of that group of 3 with both matches at home, I think it would be a disappointment.
That would be a disappointment. And you're looking at this, Leagues Cup little graphic here. There's, you're just seeing, if you're familiar with soccer, on some scale, you see these team names from the Mexican League, and they're notable.
Yes.
You got Pachuca in there. You got Club America, Cruz Azul. So I'm very excited for it. I totally agree that we should come out of the South 1, given the large regular season break that we'll be experiencing. I'm looking at East 3 really as a challenging kind of group there.
Yeah.
NYCFC, obviously, we know the pedigree, we know who they have. Atlas, nothing to scoff at, and then Toronto FC, obviously, with still a lot of very talented players up there. So it's going to be fun, man. I mean, just what a treat, If we can just be a little selfish here, I've never been able to experience something where, my favorite team is playing a team from a different country
in a game that matters,
in a meaningful setting.
Yeah.
I mean, not just even a single game. There's a trophy given out for this.
Right. Not only a trophy, CONCACAF Champions League will be changing their format, so there are more spots available. But top 3 in this tournament, first, second, and third, all get CCL spots. So
beautiful.
I'm a lot of prize money too,
and I'm very excited to see these teams come in.
Yeah.
And the Liga MX fan base are fantastic.
Yeah.
I see Pachuca. I still get some PTSD. So I'm glad they got the bye and they're way up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be exciting, man. And again, this is an opportunity for some of these guys who may not be in the regular rotation to get in there, make a name for themselves, make a positive impact on the season for Austin FC. And, it's just, man, I'm excited. I keep saying how excited I am. I'm just really excited.
Yeah, man. I mean, and another cool thing about this is no draws in the group stage. So if you're tied after 90 minutes, both teams will actually get a point, and then you play a PK shootout for an additional point to the winner.
I like it.
Which I think is a really cool
I like that
kind of tweak there to the rules. And
that's great. I mean, because they expended themselves for 90 plus minutes.
Yeah.
They could walk away with 0 there. That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the happenings around Austin FC 2 in the last week. Probably the biggest thing, or I think the thing we should start with is the signing we had, I believe, Monday morning. Anthony De Anda, who has formerly been referred to as Anthony Gonzalez, is our first academy product to sign with Austin FC 2. He had aged out of the academy system. We had seen him in training with the first team when the team was in Austin before the Florida trip. He did not go to Florida because he stayed in Austin to sign his contract. And then this morning on Tuesday, do a little media availability, which for a 17, 18-year-old kid is pretty cool. Yeah. And I actually watched, looked like Landon from Moon Tower went out there to cover it and posted it was like 6 minutes of media availability. So nothing crazy for the young guy, but he did mention that the name change is De Anda is actually his father's name. He said he had been discussing that with his family for a while. And just kind of talked about, his background, how excited he is to be able to train with the first team, become a professional player, and everything that's come along kind of with his journey in Austin, originally from the LA area. So has not lived in Austin his entire life. So it's just, me personally, obviously never seen him play live, but from everything that I've heard from people that have, not just club sources, say that the kid is really fun to watch. He's kind of an explosive player with the speed and agility and his playmaking. He is a fullback with some speed, up that sideline. So that was cool to see.
Big shout out to him.
Yeah, and then this morning, 2 more guys signed by Austin FC 2. One midfielder, Leo Torres. Torres is a 19-year-old attacking midfielder. He's originally from Divine here in Texas. And he spent much of his youth career with the San Antonio FC Academy. He has 27 total professional appearances, 9 for San Antonio FC, and 18 for Real Monarchs, which is the next pro team for RSL. Another one of those next pro teams that has a cool name instead of just RSL 2.
Yeah.
So 19-year-old that has, 20 plus professional appearances already. I love that addition. Then the other was Chris Pinkham. Pinkham is a 24-year-old fullback from the University of New Hampshire, just finished 5 seasons at UNH. He was a major contributor to that program's success. The Wildcats won 4 America East championships in his 5 years there, including 3 consecutive titles from 18 to 20. And they appeared in the NCAA tournament in all 5 of his seasons. He had 3 goals and 10 assists over 65 matches in his 5 seasons. So 24 years old. And again, similar to my takes on Sal Mazzaferro with the first team this past week, it's no disrespect to Chris Pinkham. He's a lot older, I should say, in relation to the other 6 signings for this team. I think a 3-year gap between him and everybody else that is officially on the roster so far. So me personally, I don't expect much out of him long-term for the club. Torres at age 19, I think I'm a little bit more excited about from a fan perspective, Agreed.
And looking forward to going and watching the squad.
Yeah, so in that vein, practice started today for the next pro team. We have 7 people on the roster, and we know David Rodriguez is in Florida. So
we might have to suit up.
Yeah, I guess. I guess it remains to be seen what they actually got done today. Not just because they only have 6 official players, but it was raining all morning here in Austin, Texas. I imagine they have a number of guys that are either already signed and they haven't been announced, or close to signing, or what have you. They probably have a lot more guys out there at practice today, or whatever sort of workout they got in.
They're making it work, for sure.
So I did want to talk a little bit about some of the roster rules or constraints. I guess we could say that on some of these next pro rules. Last year, the roster compliance date was March 18th, so every team had to have everything in order, ready to go by March 18th. I imagine it'll be somewhere around there this season, because I believe the first matches are that second or last weekend in March is when that season begins. In Next Pro, there are 2 transfer windows, just like MLS. I believe the dates are slightly offset from MLS transfer windows. Each team has 7 international spots. So you can certainly, get your talent for your Next Pro team from all over the world, just like the big league. Each team can only have 11 amateur players on a game day roster. So essentially your academy kids, right? Or I guess you could maybe bring in some trialists who weren't professional yet. I'm not sure who else would qualify as an amateur player outside of your academy guys. But you can only have 5 amateur players on the field at once. So we can't just come play our entire academy team in an Next Pro game. Or at least not all at once. There are no max salaries for players, and there is no salary cap. So we can pay these guys whatever we want, which I think is interesting. But again, like we mentioned earlier, you cannot move players on Next Pro contracts to the first team.
Yes.
We can move anybody we want down to get extra minutes. But once we sign somebody to an FC2 contract, they cannot play for FC that season, at least, right? So I think that if we sign a Sal Mazzaferro, a Jackson Valti, somebody like that, they are for sure going to get one of these FC2 contracts, and we won't see them with the big league team this year.
That's really good information, because I had an understanding that it was much more fluid.
I did too.
I think I was coming from more of a G League NBA kind of situation where you're in a tight spot and you bring up Jimmer Fredette.
Right. Shout out Jimmer.
Shout out Jimmer, friend of mine. So that's good news, because I was definitely, and I had said previously on the pod that, we were going to see guys from the young boys team, slotted in some of these less important games. So that cannot happen.
Right.
All right, cool. I'm glad you found that out. I'm glad you had to dig through whatever MLS fucking archives that they have to find that out, because that's good information.
Yeah, and like obviously we may have some guys that are on first team contracts, most likely those supplemental spots that spend the majority of their time with the FC2, but we'll have to see just how much we send some of those guys down.
Yeah.
Come the start of that season. Last thing I would mention on that, which I also found interesting, that your match day roster deadlines for a next pro game are 8 p.m. Eastern of the last business day prior to a next pro game. So if, say, we have Rodney Redes, right, and we want to send him down and play in a next pro game, or let's say Kip Keller, right? Say if there's a Sunday game, we have to make it official that he is down with Friday. The FC2 team Friday at 7 p.m. Central. So just like another interesting wrinkle of that, because I really don't think that there's that type of deadline on the first team. Although I'm not sure, and at this point I'm not going to go digging through the MLS, like the other rules and regulations sheet to find out. Mm-hmm. Last thing here on Austin FC, we talked about Adrian Healy last week announcing that he had been signed to the MLS Apple TV deal as a commentator, but then also our own Sonny Guadarrama, who is an Austin boy. And I don't think we've really talked about Sonny on the pod more than once when we've been talking about, the broadcast team and what's going to happen to them next year. But, born and raised in Austin, played for the Austin Lightning, which you didn't know this, but that is actually the club I played for, not their semi-pro club, because that was a PDL club, the Austin Lightning. But like they had like youth clubs. Yeah. When I was playing soccer up till like 6th grade, that was my club, the Austin Lightning.
There we go.
He also played in Liga MX, Santos Laguna, Adelante, Meridia, Sinaloa. So, very good, lengthy professional career. Mm-hmm. Course. Then played with SAFC, then played with Austin Bold, where he had 5 goals for the Austin Bold before they folded back in 2021. Yep. And then, of course, was the Spanish color commentator for Austin FC alongside Roger I believe it's Valdivieso. And apologies to Roger if I screwed up his last name there. But also want to shout out Sonny because he started his own school, which I think we knew about, but we had never actually discussed on the pod, the Sonny Guadarrama Academy here in Austin, which was originally K-8, I believe is now K-12. Soccer-oriented education there, teams at multiple age levels. I just think that's really cool, especially to do in your hometown. And one of the coaches there, I did learn this today, one of the coaches at the Sonny Guadarrama Academy is none other than Kakuta Mane, our former member of the Verde and Black. So, we were very much fans of Kakuta, the person. Yep. And so really cool to see him staying in the area and staying connected with, some Austin FC roots there.
Absolutely. And that school is awesome.
Yeah. And so, and again, it's going to be huge, I think, just for the league as a whole to have Sonny on that Spanish broadcasting side for the Apple TV deal, because as a young broadcaster, I think we could all see as fans him get more comfortable and really start to showcase his talent on the broadcasting side over the last 2 seasons for Austin. Totally. So let's move in here now. I told you we had a lot to talk about. It's preseason, and we just went 53 minutes on Austin FC stuff. So
preseason without even any footage of a game.
Yeah. Which, to be honest, may lengthen the amount of time that we have to talk about things.
True.
Trying to provide context for people, who didn't see the game, just like us. Other MLS talk here, I guess first, and on a serious note, RIP Anton Walks, center back for Charlotte FC, was 25 years old. He passed away tragically last week in a boating accident, I believe in Florida. I'm not sure if Charlotte, I guess it would make sense that Charlotte was down there for a training camp. So I don't think, I personally don't have a ton to say outside of rest in peace. And we're thinking about the Charlotte FC family, obviously Mr. Walk's family and his friends and all that. Just because I did not know his name until he passed. So just wanted to, I guess address that situation, give our condolences and acknowledge it.
Well said. Yep. We move forward with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So getting into some of the news, the happenings here in the MLS offseason. This was a big one for us, and it didn't go our way. Alex Collins has signed with a team. He's going to Girona in La Liga, so can't fault him there. Going to La Liga instead of sticking around in MLS. He will reunite with his former MLS Cup champion teammate from 2021 in Tati Castellanos there. So NYCFC, their championship, they're probably the two most important players from that team, maybe outside of Sean Johnson. Now in Spain, Girona currently sitting in 11th in the La Liga standings. A lot of Philly moves here. They traded, I believe, this morning for Jamaican international center back Damian Lowe. Damian Lowe played last season with Inter Miami. He's 28 years old and started I believe he's 28 years old and also had 28 starts last year for Miami. He has 50 appearances for the Jamaican national team. So Philly strengthening their back line there. They also sent goalkeeper Matt Freese out in a trade to NYCFC. Matt Freese actually started in net against Austin last Saturday. So he's 24 years old. He's a Philadelphia homegrown. And as you can imagine, as a goalkeeper in Philadelphia, has been stuck for years behind the GOAT, Andre Blake, 3-time MLS goalkeeper of the year. No signs of slowing down there for Blake. So 13 regular season appearances for Matt Freese over the last 4 seasons for Philly. Him moving to NYCFC may now, it doesn't confirm, but it certainly points to the fact that the rumors about Sean Johnson going to Toronto this offseason, that may come across here in the next week after NYCFC traded for Freese. So you talked about Toronto earlier a little bit, touched on them as a team with a lot of really talented players, at least on paper, on the roster, specifically those two Italians. Adding Sean Johnson in net, certainly going to raise their floor and ceiling, I think, simultaneously. And then the final piece of Philly news here, they traded for Joaquin Torres from Montreal. Torres is a 26-year-old forward or number 10. He can play. It's more of like a second forward is how I saw him described if he's not playing the 10 there in the central midfield. He's 26 years old, 7 goals, 12 assists in 55 appearances for Montreal.
The exodus from Montreal continues.
And, when we talk about our best and worst off seasons next week, Montreal might be showing up in one of those categories. We'll see.
They very well could be. And we'll give you a hint.
Orlando City signed, here's a name for you, E. Dagur Dan Thorhalsson.
Wow. It's right off the Viking ship.
Yeah, Thorhalsson is Thorhallsson. And he's coming to Orlando from the club Breidablik in Iceland. He's a 22-year-old midfielder. He's got 4 appearances for the Iceland national team. He had 11 goals and 7 assists in 40 appearances with Breidablik, and described as a versatile box-to-box midfielder. So Orlando City already had a strong offseason. Of course, adding Felipe Martins and a couple other players, adding this Viking from Iceland, young guy, certainly not a bad look on paper. And these just came across in the hour before we started recording today. Atlanta United are in talks to sign, here's another name for you, Georgios Giakoumakis from Celtic. And that would be a DP deal. Apparently, they're not the favorites at this point to sign Giakoumakis. But now solidly in the mix before, I believe, another team. I forget the name of the team that was described as the favorite. Apparently, this was Fabrizio Romano tweeting about this potential deal. Atlanta has now entered the talks in a serious manner. And certainly they're looking to upgrade after sending out Joseph Martinez and a couple other players in the offseason. Then Minnesota United agreed to sign Mexican center back Miguel Tapias when his contract expires this summer. And apparently they are continuing talks with Pachuca to bring him in immediately, but there's no deal there yet. So confirmed this summer, potentially coming in before the season starts. He's a 26-year-old center back who has made 72 appearances with Pachuca. And then maybe most importantly to the league and to your interest of this weekly rundown that I give you, E, Lionel Messi apparently is not inclined to sign an extension with PSG. And because I think both of us fans of Le Batard and friends, Mike Ryan Ruiz has actually been on this since December. He continues to assert that Inter Miami thinks they still have a good chance to sign Messi. So obviously the news on Messi has been ping-ponging back and forth on they've got an agreement, they're still talking, he has no interest. It seems to change every week, but I mean, we haven't booked those Miami tickets yet, but I think we should just in case.
I totally agree. And there seems to be something there.
Yeah. And wouldn't he have, like, if it was smooth, at least, if he knew what he was going to do, wouldn't it be done?
For sure. And I mean, even though nothing happened with Cristiano, it's clearly once it was a inconceivable thought, really, that either of these dudes, it was like, kind of a pipe dream, but there's, it's not green smoke, but there's smoke around there.
Yeah. Definitely not green smoke.
Yeah. And
pink smoke, I guess.
If anyone is in for the Miami trip, let us know. It gets.
I think we should go regardless, man. I think we should go regardless, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Me and you do it. I don't. I'm just saying, if people want to get involved.
Yeah. No doubt.
I'm down to hit a beach, a nice beach.
Yeah. I think there's some nice beaches out there. I've heard
that there's some good beaches there.
Yeah, and other things that are good.
Apparently, comedy clubs. Apparently,
yeah, because that's where we're going to Miami. Yeah. Couple other pieces of news here that we wanted to hit on. First, the MLS eliminated the allocation order from just kind of the inner workings of MLS. So again, I think a step in the right direction to reforming this league to just be able to continue to grow. I think most of our concerns come with the salary cap, but this is a mechanism of, roster building here. Just a quick refresher on what the hell that is. Allocation process was used to determine which club had first priority to acquire a player that was listed on the allocation ranking list. That list consisted of the following, with teams able to trade places in the allocation order. So that list contains select U.S. men's national team players, select youth U.S. national team players, and former MLS players returning to MLS after joining a non-MLS club for an outgoing transfer fee of $500,000 or more. So they did away with it fairly quickly and without much fanfare. So again, I think these silly things that the MLS does, like the way that they got rid of it, to me just says we don't need any of this shit anymore. And we should continue to build and move towards, a more modernized league or a more standardized league compared to the rest of the world. Just some examples there from last year of how the allocation order list was actually used. Inter Miami used it to sign DeAndre Yedlin coming back in to MLS. Matt Miazga was allocated to FC Cincinnati, and Jefferson Savarino, who we know very well from the playoff match last year against RSL. That's how RSL acquired him from the allocation process list. I also think FC Cincinnati kind of infamously gamed that system where they had the first spot. And when a team wanted a player from that list, they would basically hold the first spot ransom and then trade maybe for like the second spot also. So they would move back to the first, and they really gamed the system. So congrats to them on that, finding that little loophole. So the Board of Governors approved the update, eliminating the allocation ranking list. And the last thing I think we can say on this was, what about, there was a team holding the number one selection in that order, right? So what happens to them?
Right.
It was St. Louis City, right? The expansion team who had that number one spot gifted to them based on being an expansion team. So instead of giving them the first position in that allocation ranking, they were provided the opportunity to retain the right of first refusal over one player of their choosing who was on the allocation ranking list at the time that it was eliminated. And they chose Josh Sargent, of, I believe, Norwich City, right, is where he plays in the second division there in England. I think that's It's not Champions League, but I think it's whatever they call it. It's right below Premier League. Yep. So obviously Josh Sargent not coming to MLS anytime soon, but 10 years down the road, Josh Sargent wants to come back home. You're going to have to deal with St. Louis City to sign him. So there you go. It says future players transferred out of MLS will become discoverable 1 week from when the player's international transfer certificate is permanently transferred. So that would bring you into discovery rights, which we know, to sign Moussa Jite, right? I believe we had to pay a club money for his discovery rights. When we bought Driussi from Zenit, I believe Miami was the team that held his discovery rights, had to pay them $50K or something.
Yep.
We know Sporting KC has the discovery rights on Cristiano Ronaldo. So, we're getting rid of the allocation list and placing more importance on discovery rights. So we're not out of just the silly woods yet with MLS, but we've narrowed it down to the number of processes that we need to know about, or at least need to know how they work. So the last thing here before we get out of here, a little over an hour here on episode 27, our Mackenzie Gaines episode. We miss you, buddy. This is right up our alley. I'm as sitting here as, professional gambler. You like to gamble a little bit yourself. We did see the MLS Cup odds released last week by BetMGM. They were the first sports book in the States to release odds. Other sports books have come along since and released their own. In that opening list, Austin was plus 700, so 7-1 for the uninitiated. That was, I believe, third best in MLS behind LAFC. So it was it looked like to me that BetMGM kind of looked at the standings from last year and just went in order of how they finished. And that's kind of when we had our buddy Thomas Viola on back on, I think, episode 9 back in the middle of last season. Yep. We were talking about how Vegas is way behind in terms of their knowledge on MLS and setting the lines there. So there can really be some good gambling opportunities if you're so inclined, to put down some jelly beans, whether you're in a legal state or not. What's interesting is over the last week, those odds, as odds tend to do, have shifted. Austin FC is now no longer third. They are fifth. And our odds have doubled to 14-1.
Okay.
So I will say this. I will say two things, I guess. Number one, I think it's wrong. NYCFC and LA Galaxy have now leapfrogged Austin in those odds.
The Galaxy?
Yeah.
They want to have a team.
We know they don't have fans right now. There are zero fans of the Galaxy. And also NYCFC lost Tati, lost Collins, haven't about to lose Sean John. I just don't see them as that. I just don't see them as being better than Austin FC right now. Certainly with the goings on in the last week, I don't know what could have happened outside of just action coming in on those odds. And let me check where they actually were. NYCFC opened at plus 800. So they've actually gone down now too. They opened at 8-1. They're now 10-1. Austin has just fallen further down than either of those clubs because the Galaxy opened up at 9-1 and they are now 12-1. So we've just fallen further in those BetMGM odds. I will say over on the DraftKings Sportsbook, Austin FC 9-1. So if you're odd shopping, and you and I will, I think we agreed that we kind of have to going forward. We're going to put a hundy down on Austin every season and just, let it ride. So we're going to odd shop right now. 14-1 looks pretty good. I'm much more excited to get 14-1 than 7-1 on Austin to win MLS Cup.
Absolutely. And they might keep slipping too, honestly, because it just sounds like they feel that the top two was it LAFC and
Philly. Right now it's 4.5-1 for LAFC, 6-1 on Philly.
Yeah, we're gonna put some money on it.
Yeah. And also, so they also released conference odds. We are fourth in Western Conference odds, behind LAFC, LA Galaxy, and the Seattle Sounders, which is interesting that the Sounders have better odds to win the West than we do to win the Cup. Actually, I can correct myself. Seattle is now also 14-1 to win the Cup. So even with us in Cup odds, but 1.6-1 to win the West is LAFC, Galaxy, and Sounders both 5-1, and then we are 7-1 to win the West now. That is a clear tier break, though, between those top four and the fifth most likely, which is FC Dallas at 12-1.
Okay.
So we are still viewed as a top 4 team by the sports books. And again, top 4 gets you that home playoff match in the first round.
That's what
so, and I'm looking at this list here, E. I'll actually just shoot you real quick. A screen grab. I'll shoot you real quick a screen grab of what I'm looking at, just so you can maybe find one yourself. If you see anything that I don't mention here, if I was like going to put a bet down on a non Austin FC team to win the cup, which of course I won't do, at least publicly, but 40-1 on both Orlando City and Toronto FC look interesting to me, just based off the raw talent. Like the recent success of Orlando, I think they've had a strong offseason. And again, any team with Insigne, Bernadeschi, and now potentially Sean Johnson in goal, I don't think should be 40-1. So I think those are decent long shot bets. And then if you go even further down, the 50-1s, Sporting KC, I am scared of this year. Maybe not scared of, but I think they're going to be a lot better than they were last season. We saw kind of inklings of them on the rise after the summer transfer window, and we know they get back a couple important players from injury as well. And then Portland, who I think the fact that Eric Williamson is still there, to have him and this new signing of Vander in the midfield, along with the Chara brothers, who I know you and I both are big. You're a big Chara fan.
Yeah.
For them to also be 50-1, just 18 months removed from an MLS Cup appearance. Those odds are to me, those are a little bit off. So those are the 4 that stuck out to me.
Yep. Those are definitely sticking out to me. Inter Miami 25-1.
Yeah, not bad. Them and FC Cincinnati right there.
Yeah. Minnesota 33-1. I initially caught my eye, but not so much.
They haven't done much this offseason.
They have not. I'm still kind of basing that a lot off of my experience with that team last year. But yeah, I mean, it looks like they really just are having a difficult time slotting these teams appropriately.
Yeah.
And I could see Austin FC even dropping to something a little more along the 16-1, maybe even 18.
Sure.
I mean, why, like you look at the 18-1 there, and it's, it's sitting between Nashville and Montreal. Wow.
So I'm glad you caught that, because that was the last one I was going to bring up. Is that one is way too high, 20-1 on Montreal.
Can we get the to not make the playoffs?
Yeah, they're going to be terrible.
They're going to be shit. Wow.
So yeah, I think again, like to our buddy Thomas's point from months ago, I think that Vegas, out of all the sports that we're allowed to bet on here in the United States, or that like have like true markets for them, there is still some advantage here to the MLS faithful when you're looking at some of these odds, especially on who not to pick, because I think that's a perfect example right there of Montreal being what, 8th out of 29 teams here in the odds. That's just ridiculous. Last thing here, still on the gambling kick, that we also have odds for the opening match against St. Louis City. And so looking at that, Austin FC minus 200 favorites, which is sizable home favorites. And that is odds to win in regulation. Draw is plus 310, and St. Louis City to win plus 425. So, Vegas very confident, as they should be, in a, Final Four team in Austin, hosting the expansion side, St. Louis City SC. Over under looks like the projections have the total at just under 3. It's minus 145 on the over 2.5. So okay, month out, but it's never too early to start looking at those lines, at least in our world. So we'll keep our eyes on those, and we are going to be doing some for those inclined to lay jelly beans, if they have the ability, we'll be doing some content throughout the season on that, because I already do that content for my job. So we'll just also share it here with our friends.
And it's also nice to get paid money to watch sports.
It is. It is
quite nice if you haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah.
You haven't been through it yet. It's really fun.
Yeah. So I think that's going to do it here for us on episode 27 of the North End podcast, our McKenzie Gaines episode. We will be back next week with a lot of nonsense, at least nonsense, in our neck of the woods. I think we're going to have some more draft type activities, some more competitions between us. And then, of course, as we kind of talked about last week, a lot of fun stuff planned for the month of February leading up to the season opener there on the 25th. So we've been picking up some followers. The downloads and the views and the listens appear to be picking up as well. So to anybody that is a new listener and you stuck it out here, 75 minutes of us talking about preseason MLS, we appreciate you. Welcome. We hope you enjoy, just kind of our corner of, nonsense here, talking Austin FC and everything else surrounding the team.
Our corner of this awesome community.
Yeah, I mean, and the community is what kind of drove us to do this, right? Like,
totally.
Obviously, we have our own connections to the team as friends who went in on season tickets years ago, and I think we both plan to keep these like for life at this point. Like, I don't see a reason at this point why I would give them up.
Yep.
But then, just seeing the interest in the team continue to grow, not just around the stadium on the social medias, but just around the city. Really pushed us to kind of, I guess, integrate ourselves more with the community and make connections that way. And we have. And I mean, certainly looking forward to doing so more this season.
You didn't say it as nicely on Twitter as I will say it right now, but it is all genuine. The fanhood here, the fandom, the way we approach rooting for this team, rooting for this club is genuine, and it's going to continue. And it's going to keep getting bigger and better. And we're just really glad that people are joining us on this journey, and we're learning things and helping people learn things. And it's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be back with more Austin FC content, overreacting to preseason news and lineups and, going frame by frame through any content that the team puts out, looking for little tiny bits of crumbs and morsels of Austin FC information, meaningless or not. Those tidbits. We'll keep doing that throughout the preseason. And then, we are a month away. I was like, man, I got to get back into the gym. I got to start eating healthy. And then I was like, fuck. Yeah.
Because, our diet definitely goes not out the window, but it's a struggle.
Yeah. Our in-season diet changes a lot of Taco Bell.
Oh, all right, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. If you've got 5 seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get your pods, we would greatly appreciate it. If you're listening on the YouTube channel, subscribe there, hit the thumbs up on this episode. And you can hit the notification bell to know when new episodes are posted or when we go live, at least one live stream coming to you from our channel before the season starts, potentially more. And I think live streams, maybe live streamed podcast, with some fan interaction and engagement is in the cards for this season coming up. So we are very excited for it. We're excited that you're here joining us again, coming into this 2023 season. And we hope to see you next week. We will be back again with episode 28 next week. And we will certainly see everybody on Twitter on Friday trying to do our same preseason thing here with the FC Cincinnati match. But until next time, Vamos Austin FC. Goodbye.